Chapter 1. The moment I couldn't speak English. 5 months ago, I could not even say, "Hello, my name is," without feeling my heart race. I remember standing in front of a group of people trying to speak English, but the words refused to come out. My mouth felt dry. My face turned red. Everyone waited. And in that moment, I felt small, silent, and invisible. I wanted to speak. I wanted to connect, but my fear was stronger than my voice. Maybe you know this feeling too, when your brain knows the words, but your mouth stays quiet. When you understand a little, but not enough to answer. When you smile and nod, pretending, but deep inside, you wish you could say something more. That was me, 5 months ago. Every time I watched an English movie, I understood only a few words. Every time I saw a foreigner, I felt nervous. Every time someone asked me a question, I wanted to run away. I told myself, maybe English is too hard for me. But something inside me whispered, no. You can learn. You just need to try. I realized that English was not only about grammar or vocabulary, it was about confidence. It was about believing that I could change, even if I started small. At first, I made many mistakes. I pronounced words wrong. I forgot simple things. Sometimes people laughed. Sometimes I laughed too, but deep inside I felt embarrassed. Still, I kept going. I listened, I practiced, I failed, and I tried again. Slowly, something began to change. The same words that once scared me started to sound familiar. The sentences that confused me started to make sense. And one day, I noticed something beautiful. I could introduce myself with no fear. It was not magic. It was not talent. It was practice, patience, and passion. Every day, I gave myself a small goal. Listen for 10 minutes, read 1 page, speak 1 line. And every small goal became a step on my English journey. Now, I can sit here and tell you my story in English. Not perfect English, but real English. The kind that comes from effort and heart. The kind that shows change is possible when you do not give up. Learning English changed my life. It gave me confidence, new friends, and a new world of opportunities. It taught me that language is not only words, it is courage. So if you are struggling right now, if you feel shy or lost, remember this. I was there too. You can do it. You just need to start, 1 word at a time, 1 step at a time. And today, I will tell you exactly how I did it, how I learned English in just 5 months. So, are you ready to begin? Good. Let me take you back to the beginning. Chapter 2. The Struggle. When I first started learning English, everything felt impossible. The words sounded fast, sharp, and strange. People spoke, but to me, it all sounded like one long song with no spaces. I could not catch where one word ended and the next began. Every time I watched an English movie, I tried to listen carefully. But after 2 minutes, I felt lost. I could see the actors smiling, crying, shouting, but I could not understand why. It was like watching a world I could not enter. In school, it was not much better. My teacher would ask, "Who wants to answer this question?" Everyone looked down. I looked down too. My heart beat so fast that I could hear it in my ears. Sometimes the teacher called my name and I froze. My mind went blank, like someone had deleted all the words I knew. I wanted to speak, but my tongue felt heavy. I whispered something, maybe the wrong answer, and the class laughed. That laughter stayed in my mind for a long time. Outside the classroom, English followed me everywhere. I saw English on signs, in movies, on social media, on products in the store. It felt like the whole world spoke this language, except me. One day a tourist stopped me on the street. He smiled and asked, "Excuse me, where is the bus station?" I understood only the word bus. I pointed somewhere and said, "There," even though I wasn't sure. He thanked me, and I smiled, but inside, I felt ashamed. Why couldn't I answer a simple question? I went home that night feeling empty. I opened my notebook and tried to read, but the words danced on the page like strangers at a party I wasn't invited to. I wanted to cry. I thought, maybe English is not for people like me. Maybe I will never understand. Every time I failed, my confidence broke a little more. I stopped trying to speak. I stopped watching movies. I told myself, next week. I'll start again next week, but next week never came. One day at work, my manager asked me to help welcome a visitor from another country. He spoke English. Everyone around me smiled and said, "Hello? Nice to meet you." When it was my turn, I froze again. I managed to say, "Hello?" but nothing more. The visitor smiled politely, but I could feel the silence stretching between us like a wall. Later, my coworker joked, "You're too quiet." They were laughing, but I wasn't. I felt like a child in a room full of adults. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and said to myself, "What's wrong with me?" I could read a little. I could understand some words. But when it came time to speak, everything disappeared. My reflection looked back at me, tired, lost, and afraid. I thought about all the people who spoke English so easily. How could they remember so many words? How could they speak so fast? Did they ever feel the same fear? The truth was, I didn't hate English. I hated how small I felt when I tried to use it. I hated feeling invisible, unable to express my real thoughts. When I spoke in my own language, I could be funny, confident, and clear. But in English, I became someone else. Someone quiet, nervous, and unsure. That was the hardest part. I remember sitting alone in a cafe one weekend. Two foreign travelers sat near me, laughing and talking in English. They looked so free. I wanted to join them, even just to say, "Hi, how are you?" But I couldn't. I sat there, stirring my coffee, pretending to look at my phone, feeling the same old mix of envy and sadness. I thought, if only I could speak like them, my world would be bigger. On my way home, I saw a small English bookshop. The window was full of books with bright covers, stories, guides, and dictionaries. I walked past it, then stopped. I turned back. Something inside me whispered, "Go in." But I didn't. I kept walking, afraid that even the books would judge me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of those books stayed in my mind. For the first time, I felt angry. Not at the language, but at myself for giving up so easily. The next morning, I made a cup of tea and sat by the window. The sun was rising, soft and warm. I looked outside and thought, do I really want to stay like this forever? Afraid to speak, afraid to try? My heart said no. Something had to change. But I didn't know where to start. I had tried so many times and failed. Yet, there was a small voice inside me that refused to die. It said, "You can do it. You just need to start again." This time, with a new mindset, I realized that the biggest problem wasn't my memory or my pronunciation. It was my fear. I had been fighting English like it was an enemy. But what if I treated it like a friend? A friend I could visit every day, slowly learning about each other. Maybe then it wouldn't feel so hard. Maybe then I wouldn't feel so alone. That thought gave me hope. For the first time, instead of feeling helpless, I felt curious. I wanted to know what would happen if I really tried, not just for a few days, but for months. Could I change? Could I really learn? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew I had to try. That morning, I made a promise to myself. No matter how many mistakes I made, I would not quit this time. I would learn English, one small step at a time. I would stop being afraid of what people thought. I would stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment doesn't exist. Only this one does. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "This is it. This is the start." That day, I decided I would not give up. I needed a plan and a reason. Chapter 3. The Big Reason: Finding My Motivation. After that day, I knew I couldn't keep studying the same way. I had failed many times before because I didn't know why I wanted to learn. Yes, English was important. Everyone said so. But important is not the same as personal. Without a deep reason, my energy always faded away. So this time, I decided to search for my why. I needed a reason strong enough to pull me forward, even on the days I felt tired or afraid. One evening, I sat at my desk and wrote down a question. Why do I want to learn English? At first, I didn't know how to answer. I looked around my small room, my books, my old laptop, my dream of a better future. Then I thought of my job. Every week, foreign clients visited our company. They spoke English. My manager spoke English. But I didn't. I could only smile and nod. Sometimes I saw opportunities, better positions, higher salaries, go to others who could speak confidently. I told myself it was unfair. But deep inside, I knew the truth. They had skills I didn't. That night, I realized my first reason. I wanted a better life. I didn't want to stay in the same position forever. I wanted to grow, to move forward, to prove to myself that I could. And English was the bridge that could take me there. The next day, I remembered something else. A few years ago, my best friend went abroad to study. When she came back, she spoke English so naturally. She told me stories about new friends, new places, and new experiences. She said, "When you can speak English, the world opens for you." At that moment, I smiled politely, but secretly, I felt small again. She was right. Her world was open, and mine was still closed. So, I added another reason to my list. I wanted to travel and see the world, not just as a tourist who takes pictures, but as someone who can truly connect with people. I wanted to order food, ask for directions, and make small talk, all in English. I wanted to walk into another country and feel confident, not afraid. As I wrote, my heart started to feel lighter. Each reason was like a small flame inside me. The more I thought about them, the brighter they became. Soon, I had more than one reason. I had a dream. I wanted to learn English not only for success, but also for connection, freedom, and confidence. Before, I used to study just because everyone said, "You must learn English." I studied for fun, but when it got hard, I quit. Now, I was learning for a purpose, and purpose changes everything. When you study for fun, you stop when you're tired. When you study for purpose, you keep going because you remember your reason. To test myself, I made a small vision board. I printed pictures of airplanes, books, cities, and smiling people. I put it on the wall next to my desk. Every morning when I opened my eyes, I saw those pictures. They reminded me of what I wanted. On days when I didn't feel like studying, I looked at them and thought, "This is why I started." And slowly, That simple picture board became my silent teacher. But motivation is not always strong. There were still days when I woke up tired, when work was heavy, or when my mind said, "You can study tomorrow." Those were the moments I almost lost my focus again, until one small event changed everything. One afternoon at work, I saw a foreign visitor struggling to find his way. He looked around, holding his phone, confused. Everyone was busy. No one helped him. I wanted to speak, but again, fear stopped me. Then I thought about my reasons, my better life, my dreams, my future. I took a deep breath and walked over to him. I said slowly, "Can I help you?" My voice shook, but I said it anyway. He smiled and replied, "Yes, thank you." "I'm looking for the main office." I showed him the way, step by step. My English was simple, but it worked. When he said, "You speak good English," my heart almost burst with joy. That one sentence felt like a gift. For the first time, I felt proud, not shy. That moment taught me something powerful. Learning English is not only about grammar or tests, it's about human connection. When you speak even a few words, you build bridges, you show courage, you make the world smaller and friendlier. That was my third reason. I wanted to connect with people, to make my world bigger. From that day, I stopped comparing myself with others. Everyone learns differently. Some learn fast, some slow. Some have more time, some have less. But what matters most is not the speed. It's the reason behind the journey. When your reason is strong, your progress will follow. At night, before sleeping, I started saying a small sentence to myself. I am learning English because I want to grow. I repeated it like a song, and every morning it gave me energy to study again. Even when I made mistakes, I smiled, because now I knew why I was doing it. I looked at my old notebooks filled with crossed-out words and messy handwriting. Before, they made me feel like a failure. Now, they made me feel proud. Each page showed effort. Each mistake showed courage. And every small step brought me closer to the person I wanted to be. Slowly, my fear started to shrink. It didn't disappear completely. Fear never does. But my reason became stronger than my fear, and that made all the difference. Learning for fun had failed me before, but learning for purpose was transforming me. It was giving me direction, like a compass pointing forward. When you know your reason, you don't ask, "How long will it take?" You ask, "What can I do today to move closer?" That was the secret I had been missing all along. Motivation doesn't come from outside. It grows inside you. It grows from your dreams, your pain, your hope. It grows when you see the life you want and decide not to stop until you reach it. And once I found my reason, everything started to make sense. The next question was clear. How could I turn this motivation into a real, daily plan? I needed something simple, something I could do every day without giving up. Once I found my reason, I needed a plan, a simple system I could follow every day. Chapter 4. My 5-month plan. Once I had a strong reason to learn, I knew I needed a plan, something clear, something simple. Before, I used to study without direction. One day I watched a YouTube video. Another day I read a few words, and the next week I did nothing. I called it studying, but really, it was just guessing. No wonder I never saw real progress. This time, I wanted to treat English like a promise. So I built a plan that would help me stay focused for 5 full months. The first rule of my plan was easy. Study every day, even a little. I told myself, it's better to study 10 minutes daily than 3 hours once a week. Small steps, done often, create big change. So I made a daily routine. Morning for listening, afternoon for speaking, and evening for reading or writing. In the morning, I started with listening. Right after waking up, before checking my phone, I played an English story or a podcast. At first, I understood almost nothing. The voices felt too fast, but I listened anyway. Sometimes I replayed one short part many times until my brain caught the rhythm. I didn't try to translate. I just let the sound of English fill my ears. I listened while brushing my teeth, while making breakfast, even while walking to work. It became my morning music. After a few weeks, I started to recognize familiar words. Today, happy, because. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. In the afternoon, during lunch or break time, I focused on speaking. This was the hardest part, because I had no one to talk to. So, I talked to myself. Yes, it sounded funny, but it worked. I described what I was doing. I'm eating rice. I'm drinking tea. I'm going to work. At first, it felt silly, but little by little, I became more comfortable hearing my own voice in English. When I walked home, I repeated phrases from the morning podcast. Sometimes people looked at me strangely, but I didn't care. Every word I said made my confidence grow. In the evening, I ended the day with reading and writing. I chose short stories for English learners. I read out loud to practice pronunciation. If I found new words, I wrote them in a small notebook. But instead of memorizing lists, I wrote simple example sentences. For example, if the new word was journey, I wrote, "My English journey starts today." That small trick helped me remember faster because each word had meaning for me. After reading, I wrote one short paragraph about my day, in English. Sometimes only 3 sentences, sometimes more. I didn't worry about grammar, I just wrote. Then, once a week, I looked back at my old writing and corrected it. That way, I could see my improvement over time. It made me proud to notice that my sentences were getting longer, my thoughts clearer, and my mistakes fewer. But even with a plan, staying consistent was not easy. The first 2 weeks were exciting. The 3rd week was harder. The 4th week, I almost gave up. I woke up late. I skipped my listening practice. I told myself, just 1 day off. But 1 day turned into 2, then 3. I felt guilty, but tired. Part of me wanted to stop again. Then I remembered my why, my big reason. I looked at my vision board and said, "You started this for a better life. Don't stop now." So I returned to my plan, one small step at a time. To make it easier, I used a calendar. Every day I studied, I marked a small X. Soon, my calendar started to fill with red marks. I didn't want to break the chain. That simple habit kept me going. It was my way of saying, I showed up again today. After 1 month, I began to feel the difference. Listening became easier, speaking felt less scary, reading was faster, and writing? It became my favorite part. I was still far from perfect, but I could see my growth. Before, I studied randomly and felt lost. Now, I had direction, a clear path. That structure gave me peace of mind. Sometimes friends asked, "How do you keep studying every day?" I told them, because I made it simple. I didn't force myself to study for hours. I focused on short, consistent moments. 10 minutes of listening, 10 minutes of speaking, 10 minutes of reading or writing, 30 minutes a day. That's all, small but powerful. I also learned one more secret. Make it fun. I didn't only use textbooks. I listened to English songs and tried to write down the lyrics. I watched simple YouTube videos about things I loved, cooking, travel, or motivation. When learning is enjoyable, your brain remembers faster. I turned English from a subject into a friend I met every day. Still, there were mornings when I wanted to sleep longer. There were evenings when my mind said, "You're too tired." But I learned something important. Success doesn't come from motivation alone. It comes from showing up, even when you don't feel like it. On those days, I reminded myself, just do 5 minutes. And once I started, 5 minutes often became 30. Action creates motivation. By the 3rd month, I noticed something beautiful. When people spoke English near me, I didn't panic anymore. I could catch words. I could answer simple questions. At work, when a client said, "Good morning," I replied with confidence. That tiny conversation felt like climbing a mountain. I wasn't fluent yet, but I was getting closer. By the 4th month, my friends started to notice. One said, "Your pronunciation sounds better now." Another said, "You seem more confident." Those small compliments kept me going. They reminded me that my plan was working. Consistency was building success, quietly, day by day. In the 5th month, my notebook was full, my listening improved, and my fear was smaller. I could finally see the person I wanted to become. My plan had turned into a habit, and my habit had turned into progress. That's when I understood something deeper. Structure gives freedom. When you have a plan, you don't waste time deciding what to do. You just follow the steps, and every step takes you forward. Looking back, I realized the truth. Before, I was learning randomly and getting nowhere. Now, I had a clear path and real results. My 5-month plan wasn't just about English. It was about discipline, growth, and believing in small progress. Routine builds success because it teaches you to trust yourself. But a plan means nothing without discipline, and I learned that the hard way. Chapter 5. The Hard Days. 5 months sounds short when you say it fast, but when you live inside those days, when you face every small failure, it feels very long. I still remember one of those mornings. I sat at my desk, my English notebook open, my coffee cold. I tried to repeat a sentence from a video, but the words just would not come out right. I said them again and again, and still, they sounded wrong. That day I felt small again. My confidence dropped. I asked myself, why am I doing this? Maybe I am not good at languages. I looked at my phone, thinking about watching something in my own language instead. But deep down, I knew if I gave up that day, I might never start again. There were many days like this. Some days, my tongue felt heavy when I tried to speak English. I forgot simple words like because or tomorrow. I listened to people speaking fast English online, and it felt like music from another world. Beautiful, but impossible to understand. At work, when my colleague asked me a question in English, my heart beat so fast. My face got hot. I wanted to hide. I tried to answer, but the words came out broken. I could see her waiting, trying to help me, but I felt embarrassed. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about my mistakes. I remember one class, too. My teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves. When it was my turn, my mind went blank. Everyone looked at me. The silence felt like forever. I finally said, "My name is..." and then nothing. I laughed nervously, but inside, I wanted to cry. Those moments hurt. But they were also lessons. Every mistake, every wrong word, every time I felt small, it taught me something. It showed me what I needed to fix. It reminded me that learning is not easy, but it is possible. I started writing a simple sentence on a sticky note. Every mistake is a teacher. I put it on my mirror. Every morning, when I felt afraid, I read it. It reminded me that falling is part of walking. Still, some days were hard to keep going. I woke up tired. I thought, maybe one day off won't matter. But one day became 2, and then a week. My progress slowed down. I could feel it. That scared me. I realized that learning is like exercise. If you stop, your muscles get weak again. So I started to push myself gently. I said, just 10 minutes today. Sometimes after 10 minutes, I wanted to do more. Sometimes not, but I showed up. That was the key. Even small steps were still steps forward. There was another challenge. My inner voice. It always whispered, "You are too old," or "Your English will never be good." That voice was powerful, but I learned to answer it. I said, maybe I am slow, but I am moving. Maybe I am not perfect, but I am trying. Slowly, that voice became quiet. I began to see progress in small things. I could understand more words in movies. I could answer short questions with confidence. I even made one short video in English to practice speaking. When I watched it, I laughed because my accent was strong, but I was proud, because the old me would never try. Still, the journey was not smooth. Some nights, I cried. Some mornings, I doubted myself. But every time I thought about quitting, I remembered why I started. I remembered the dream of being able to talk freely, to understand others, to feel part of the world. That dream kept me going. I began to see that pain and progress live in the same place. If you want to grow, you must go through the pain. You cannot skip it. I learned that slow is not stop. Even when I felt I was moving like a turtle, I was still moving forward. The hardest days taught me the most. They showed me that success is not about being smart. It is about not giving up. It is about standing up every time you fall. I told myself, it's okay to be tired. It's okay to fail. Just don't stop. And then something beautiful happened. One day, while listening to a podcast, I suddenly understood a full sentence. Without thinking. It was small, but it felt like magic. I smiled. That small victory gave me new energy. From that day, I started to see learning differently. It was no longer a fight. It became a journey, full of ups and downs, but also full of meaning. Yes, there were hard days, but without them, there would be no strong days. Without mistakes, there would be no progress. And one special day, something inside me changed. I realized I could make learning fun. I didn't have to suffer every time. I could enjoy it. That day marked the start of a new chapter. One where learning became something I looked forward to, not something I feared. And that's when everything started to change. So, how did I make learning fun? Let me tell you. Chapter 6. Learning through stories. One morning, after another long study night, I sat in front of my laptop and asked myself, why does learning English feel so hard? I was tired of grammar books, tired of rules, tired of repeating words without meaning. I wanted English to feel alive, not just something from a textbook. Then, something simple changed everything. I found a short English story online. It was called The Brave Little Bird. The words were easy, the sentences were short. But there was emotion in it, hope, courage, kindness. I listened once, then again. This time I didn't try to translate every word. I just listened with my heart. And for the first time, I felt something. I smiled. The story made me feel English, not just study it. That small moment became the start of a big change. From that day, I began learning through stories. Every morning before work, I listened to one short English story. Simple, emotional, human. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine every scene. If a story said, "The boy walked alone in the rain," I imagined the boy, the rain, the sound of his footsteps. English started to become pictures in my mind, not just words on paper. At first, I repeated 1 or 2 sentences each time. I would pause the video and say them out loud. The boy walked alone in the rain. He was not afraid. I listened, repeated, and felt the rhythm of each word. Slowly, I began to speak with more confidence. The difference between grammar study and storytelling was huge. When I only studied grammar, I was thinking too much. Is it past tense? Should I use have or has? My brain worked hard, but my heart was quiet. But with stories, it was the opposite. My heart was open. My imagination was alive, and English started to grow naturally. I learned new words without forcing myself. If I didn't know a word, I could guess its meaning from the story. It felt easy. I realized this was how children learn their first language, not from grammar rules, but from stories, songs, and emotions. I started to enjoy English again. Every night before sleeping, I listened to one story on my phone. Sometimes it was about friendship, sometimes about dreams, sometimes about a person who failed many times before finding success. I felt connected to those stories because they were just like me, trying, failing, and growing. There was one story that touched me deeply. It was about a young man who wanted to be a painter. Everyone laughed at him. They said he was not talented. But he kept painting every day. One day, his art was shown in a big gallery, and everyone who once laughed began to clap for him. I listened to that story many times. Each time I cried a little because I saw myself in that man. I was not painting, but I was building something, my English dream. I started writing down new words I learned from stories, but this time I didn't just write the word. I wrote the feeling next to it. For example, brave, the little bird in the story. Hope, when the painter kept trying. Each word had life, a memory. That made learning unforgettable. When I used English stories, I also learned how people feel the language. I noticed the way characters spoke, the tone, the emotion. I learned that words are not just sounds, they carry feelings. For example, I'm fine can mean many things depending on how you say it. I even started talking to myself in English using storylines. I would say, "Today, I am the hero of my story." I imagined myself as a character learning, growing, and winning small battles every day. This made learning not only fun, but also personal. The best part? My listening skills improved faster than ever before. Before, English movies sounded too fast. But after a few weeks of listening to stories daily, I started catching more words. My brain became familiar with how English sounds. The music of the language became clearer. I realized something powerful. Stories teach grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation all at once. You don't even notice it, but your brain is learning patterns naturally. That's the magic of stories. I remember one night, I was so tired that I didn't want to study. But I told myself, just one short story. I pressed play, and within minutes, I was lost in another world. When it ended, I felt peaceful. English didn't feel like homework anymore. It felt like a friend. I think that's the secret. When you enjoy what you learn, you remember it. When you connect emotion to words, they stay with you forever. So, I made storytelling my daily routine. I even started telling small stories myself. I spoke about my day as if it were a story, with a beginning, middle, and end. Today, I woke up late. I ran to the bus. But then I smiled because I remembered my favorite story. Never give up. Every story, even the small ones, gave me strength. They reminded me that English is not about being perfect. It's about connection, with people, with ideas, with yourself. One day, I realized I was no longer afraid to listen to English. I was excited. I wanted to hear more, to understand more, to feel more. That's when I knew my English journey had truly changed. Learning through stories made me fall in love with English. It made the language warm, human, and full of heart. And soon, something inside me said, "Now it's time to speak." Not just listen, it's time to use your voice. That thought led to the next big step in my journey. Learning to speak with confidence. Chapter 7. Speaking without fear. The first time I spoke English to a foreigner, my hands were shaking. My heart was beating so fast that I could almost hear it. I remember standing in a small cafe near my office. A tourist came in and asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the bus station is?" For a second, I froze. My brain screamed, "You know this!" You can answer. but my mouth refused to move. I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, yes, bus. That way." My voice was shaking, my grammar was wrong, but the tourist smiled and said, "Thank you." That small "thank you" felt like a big win. I did it. I spoke English, not perfectly, but bravely. That day, I learned something powerful. Fear doesn't disappear before you speak. It disappears after you speak. The more I tried, the smaller the fear became. At first, I was afraid of making mistakes. I thought people would laugh at my accent or my grammar. But then I realized, people don't care about your mistakes as much as you think. Most of them are kind. They listen. They understand your effort. The only one judging you is usually yourself. After that cafe moment, I started speaking more, little by little. I talked to myself in the mirror. I pretended to order coffee in English. I practiced short phrases like, "How are you?" and "Nice to meet you." I recorded my voice and listened. It felt strange at first, but slowly it became normal. One day I joined an online English speaking group. There were people from many countries, India, Brazil, Japan, Egypt, all trying to speak English. I remember feeling nervous before turning on my microphone. My hands were sweating again. But when I finally spoke, everyone smiled and said, "Good job." We all laughed when someone made a funny mistake. One guy said, "I'm interested in cooking," instead of, "I'm interested in cooking." We all corrected him kindly, and he laughed too. That day I realized, mistakes are not enemies, they are teachers. Every week I joined those meetings. Sometimes I spoke well, sometimes I forgot words, but I always showed up, and each time my fear got smaller. My confidence grew like a small plant getting more sunlight every day. There was one special moment I will never forget. During one session, the host asked, "Can someone share a story about their English journey?" My heart said yes, but my mind said no. Still, I raised my hand. I started speaking. My voice trembled, but I continued. I said, "When I started, I was afraid to speak, but now I speak even when I'm afraid." When I finished, everyone clapped. Some even typed in the chat, "Inspiring story." I smiled and almost cried. That moment changed me. For the first time, I didn't feel like a student. I felt like a communicator, someone who could connect with others using English. After that, I practiced speaking everywhere, on the bus, while cooking, during my walk. I described what I saw. The sky is blue. The children are playing. The air feels fresh. I spoke out loud, even when people looked at me strangely. I didn't care anymore. I was practicing my dream. Of course, there were still funny moments. One time, I said to my friend, "I am boring," when I meant to say, "I am bored." He laughed and said, "Don't say that. You are not boring." We both laughed for minutes. Instead of feeling ashamed, I learned the difference. And never forgot it again. The truth is, you can study English for years and still be afraid to speak. Or you can start speaking now and get better faster. Speaking is like swimming. You can read about it, watch videos, or study the theory, but you'll never learn until you get into the water. Every time I spoke, even for 1 minute, I grew stronger. I learned that confidence is not a gift. It is a muscle. You must train it by speaking again and again. I also started shadowing, listening to native speakers and repeating what they said, copying their rhythm and tone. It felt like singing. I didn't worry about grammar. I focused on sound, feeling, and flow. After a few weeks, my speech became smoother. Sometimes I spoke to my phone using voice assistants. I said things like, "What's the weather today?" or "Tell me a story." The more I spoke, the less strange it felt. English was slowly becoming a part of my daily life. One of my favorite moments was when a foreign colleague visited our office. Before, I would have avoided eye contact. But that day, I walked up and said, "Hello. How's your day going?" He smiled and started talking. I understood him. I answered. We laughed. That simple conversation felt like climbing a mountain and finally reaching the top. That's when I realized something very important. You don't need perfect grammar to speak English. You need courage. You need heart. People remember how you make them feel, not how perfect your sentences are. Whenever I feel nervous before speaking, I tell myself, just try. Just speak. Because silence teaches you nothing. Speaking teaches you everything. After months of practice, I began to notice something new. I was not afraid of English anymore. I started to enjoy conversations. I even made a few international friends. We talked about our cultures, our food, and our dreams. English became a bridge that connected me with the world. Speaking gave me power. It made me believe in myself again. But even with that new confidence, I realized something was still missing. I had improved my listening. I had learned through stories. I had found courage to speak. But I still had one big problem: my daily habits. The truth is, I was not always consistent. Some days I practiced a lot. Some days I did nothing. I needed to fix that if I wanted to keep growing. And that's when the next chapter of my journey began, learning how to build powerful habits that keep success alive. Chapter 8: The Power of Daily Habits. After I found my courage to speak, I realized that motivation alone was not enough. Motivation is powerful, but it is not always constant. Some days I felt energetic and ready to study. Other days I felt tired, distracted, or even lazy. If I relied only on motivation, I knew I would not keep improving. I needed something stronger: habits. I started with a simple idea. 10 minutes a day is better than 3 hours once a week. I had learned this lesson earlier, but now I wanted to test it in a serious way. 10 minutes might sound small, almost too small. But I believed that if I could do something small every day, it would add up. So I made a new rule. I would study English every single day, no exceptions. I picked my 3 main activities: listening in the morning, speaking in the afternoon, and reading or writing in the evening. I didn't try to force hours at first. I just focused on showing up day after day. To track my progress, I printed a simple calendar. Every day I completed my study, I marked a big red X. The first few days, it was easy. I felt proud seeing the red marks fill the squares. Then came the challenge. Life got busy. Work was stressful. Meetings ran late. I felt tired. Some days, I wanted to skip. But when I saw the previous days marked in red, I didn't want to break the chain. I didn't want to see an empty square. That simple feeling became stronger than excuses. I realized something important. Habits are not about perfection. They are about consistency. Even on days when I was exhausted, I could still do 10 minutes. Sometimes I only listened to one story. Sometimes I only repeated a few sentences. That was enough. Each small action built a sense of accomplishment. After a month, I looked at the calendar. It was mostly filled with red X's. Seeing that visual proof of my commitment gave me energy and pride. I knew that even small efforts repeated daily, create momentum. Progress does not always feel fast, but it is real. I compared this new habit to the way I used to study. Before, I would aim to study long hours once a week. I felt motivated. I even enjoyed it at first. But after a few days without practice, I forgot everything. My progress disappeared. The big, rare study sessions were exciting but ineffective. Now the small, daily steps were building something lasting. Another habit I added was reflection. Every Sunday evening, I spent 5 minutes looking back at the week. I asked myself, did I complete my 10 minutes each day? Did I feel improvement? Did I face any challenges? This reflection helped me stay aware of my progress and adjust if needed. It also made the wins feel bigger. I could see how far I had come. I also discovered the power of chaining habits. I connected English study to daily routines I already had. While brushing my teeth, I listened to a short story. While drinking coffee, I repeated a few sentences aloud. I did not need extra time. I just attached my English practice to what I already did. This made the habit easy to maintain. Over time, the repetition changed more than my skills. It changed my mindset. I began to see myself as someone who studies English daily, naturally. I was no longer a person who tried occasionally and quit. I was becoming consistent. My small steps became identity. I was an English learner. There were moments of temptation, of course. Some evenings I wanted to watch TV or scroll social media. I told myself, just 10 minutes first. Often, once I started, I would continue for 30 minutes. Other times, 10 minutes were enough. The important part was that I never missed the day completely. Every completed day built confidence. I also noticed that habits gave me mental freedom. Before, I worried about remembering everything I had learned. Now, I trusted the process. I trusted that if I practiced daily, the knowledge would stay and grow. That trust made studying enjoyable. I no longer felt pressure to memorize or rush. I could focus on understanding and feeling English. One of my favorite moments was marking a full month on my calendar. 30 consecutive red X's. I felt unstoppable. The visual proof of my commitment was motivating. I realized that success is not always about talent or intelligence. It is about showing up consistently, even when it is difficult. I also shared this idea with a friend who was learning Spanish. I told her, don't wait for big study sessions. 10 minutes every day is stronger than 3 hours once a week. She laughed at first, but tried it. Weeks later, she agreed. Small, daily steps are powerful. Another habit I added was speaking aloud daily, even if no one was around. I described my day, told short stories, and repeated lines from English podcasts. At first, I stumbled and laughed at myself. Later, I noticed my words came faster, my pronunciation clearer. That little habit made speaking feel natural, not scary. After a few months, I looked back at my progress. The calendar was filled with red X's. My notebooks were full of words, sentences, and short stories. My listening, speaking, and writing had all improved. And the best part? I felt proud of myself every single day. Every day that I completed my habit was a small victory. I realized that big goals are important, but small steps are the key to reaching them. A large, intimidating goal like speak English fluently can feel impossible. But small steps, 10 minutes a day, one sentence at a time, make it real. They are achievable, consistent, and measurable. Slowly, those habits did more than improve my English. They changed how I saw myself. I was no longer a shy, nervous learner who gave up easily. I was a person who could commit, who could show up every day, and who could grow through small, steady actions. And with every red X on the calendar, every 10-minute session completed, I felt it. My identity was shifting. I was becoming someone who speaks English, someone who can communicate, someone who is confident in their journey. Slowly, my habits changed my identity. I was becoming an English speaker. Chapter 9. Thinking in English. One day something unusual happened. I was walking home from work, listening to an English podcast as usual. Suddenly a sentence came, and I understood it instantly, without translating. My brain didn't need to switch from my native language. The meaning was just there. I stopped in the street and smiled. I just understood without translating, I whispered to myself. That moment felt like magic. Before, I had always translated every word. I heard, "I'm going to the market," and my brain said, "Oh, that means I'm going to the market in my language." Every sentence was slow, heavy, tiring. Thinking in my own language and then switching to English made everything feel difficult. I was exhausted after just a few minutes of speaking or listening. But now, something had changed. My brain started to process English directly. I could feel the rhythm, the flow, the emotion. I could imagine scenes and feel the meaning without stopping to think. It was like finally removing a heavy backpack I had carried for years. English no longer felt like a foreign subject. It was becoming a part of my mind. From that day, I started practicing thinking in English deliberately. I told myself, whenever you notice a thought, try to say it in English. At first, it was small things. I am hungry. It is hot today. I need water. Later, it became more complex thoughts. I hope tomorrow will be a good day. Or, I am proud of myself for practicing English today. Even simple self-talk began to shift from my native language to English. This mental shift changed everything. My listening became faster because I didn't have to translate. My speaking became more natural because my thoughts were already in English. I could respond more quickly in conversations. I no longer felt that heavy pause while searching for words. I could think, then speak, almost at the same time. I also started writing in English without translating. I kept a small notebook by my bed. Every night, I wrote short reflections in English. Today, I spoke to a tourist. I was nervous, but I tried. I feel proud. At first, I had to check some words in a dictionary, but soon, sentences flowed more easily. The act of thinking in English made writing feel natural. I no longer felt trapped between two languages. One evening, I had a dream, in English. I remember waking up and smiling. In the dream, I was telling a story to a group of people. I didn't have to translate. The images, the words, the sentences all came naturally. That night, I realized immersion was no longer just a method. It had become part of my life. My mind was living in English. The contrast was clear. Before, learning English felt like climbing a mountain with heavy shoes. I had to plan every step, check every word, and translate constantly. Now, thinking in English felt like walking freely in a green field. Words came naturally. Sentences flowed. I could even guess the meaning of new words without fear because my brain had learned to feel the language. This mental habit was not instant. It required practice. I reminded myself every day. Think in English for at least 5 minutes. Speak in English in your mind. Describe your surroundings in English. Slowly, this became automatic. Whenever I saw a dog, I thought, the dog is running fast. When I drank coffee, I said in my mind, this coffee is hot and delicious. My thoughts started to paint the world in English. Immersion also taught me emotion in language. I noticed that words are more than meaning. They carry feeling. When I heard I am happy, I didn't just know the definition. I felt happiness. When I said I am sad, I remembered times I felt sad. Thinking in English connected my mind and heart. I was learning language as humans really use it, not as grammar rules on paper, but as living communication. Sometimes, I caught myself thinking about my old self. I remembered how I used to translate everything. It was slow, it was frustrating. But now, I could see how far I had come. English was no longer something separate from me. It had entered my mind. My thoughts, my dreams, my reflections, all in English sometimes. I even started singing English songs in my mind, forming sentences and playing with words. I also started noticing English in my daily life everywhere, on signs, in music, in movies. Instead of translating, I absorbed meaning directly. A movie subtitle or a sign on the street no longer required effort. My brain understood naturally. That understanding was effortless, beautiful, and motivating. Thinking in English also changed my confidence. I no longer hesitated to speak. I didn't fear mistakes as much because my mind was already practicing. I was thinking faster, speaking faster, and understanding faster. Conversations became less stressful. I could connect with people more naturally. And with this shift came creativity. I started imagining stories in English. I described my day to myself using English phrases, even made up short dialogues in my head. It became fun. I was no longer a student struggling. I was a creator, building ideas in English. This mental immersion showed me a key truth. Real fluency does not come from memorizing grammar or vocabulary alone. It comes from thinking, feeling, and living in the language. When English enters your mind, you stop translating. You start living in the language. You start understanding it naturally, like your first language. By the end of the 5th month, I realized my brain had changed. English was no longer a challenge. It was a companion. I could think in English throughout the day without effort. I could dream in English. I could write, speak, and understand more naturally than ever before. And that was when I understood something bigger. Learning English was not just a skill anymore. It had started to change my life. It affected how I thought, how I communicated, and even how I saw myself in the world. Now that English was in my mind, something even bigger changed. My life. Chapter 10. How English changed my life. Before I truly learned English, my world felt small. I spent most of my time in my city, speaking only with people who shared my language. I watched movies with subtitles. I read books slowly, translating every sentence. I dreamed about traveling, meeting people, and exploring new opportunities, but it all seemed far away, almost impossible. When I started learning English seriously, everything began to change. The first small shift was in my confidence. I could speak to foreigners without fear. I could answer simple questions, ask for directions, and share short stories. That freedom, even in small moments, felt incredible. I was no longer trapped behind walls built by my own fear and lack of language. One of the first experiences I remember was during a short trip to another city. A tourist approached me and asked for directions in English. I answered clearly, even added some suggestions. The tourist smiled, thanked me, and we had a short conversation. I felt proud. For the first time, I realized that language could break barriers. It was more than words, it was connection. Soon after, I started making friends online from different countries. We talked about our lives, our cultures, our dreams. I learned about their food, music, and daily routines. I even practiced English with them. These friendships made the world feel larger, brighter, and more exciting. Before, I would never have imagined talking to people from Brazil, Japan, or Egypt so freely. English opened the door. My career also changed. At work, I could participate in international projects. I could send emails in English, join online meetings with colleagues abroad, and present ideas confidently. Opportunities that once felt out of reach became available. My skills were noticed. My confidence grew even more. I felt proud to contribute and be understood in a global environment. Travel became more enjoyable. I could ask for directions, order food, and talk to locals without fear. I remember standing at a train station in a foreign city, reading the signs and speaking to the ticket clerk. Everything felt possible. I was no longer dependent on translation apps or guides. I could explore freely. English gave me independence. Even small moments were special. I could watch movies or YouTube videos without subtitles. I could understand songs and even sing along. I could read articles online without stopping every few words. These small joys gave me confidence and motivation to continue learning. Each day, I felt more capable and free. I also realized English gave me access to knowledge. I could read tutorials, watch lectures, and learn new skills online. I no longer had to wait for translations or hope someone explained it in my language. English became a key to knowledge and personal growth. One evening, I joined an online seminar in English about personal development. I understood almost everything. I could ask questions, share my ideas, and interact with people around the world. Before learning English, I would have only watched silently, understanding very little. That night, I felt empowered. English gave me a voice in a global conversation. I also noticed a change in how I saw myself. Learning English had taught me discipline, courage, and consistency. I realized that I could learn difficult things if I committed. That confidence spread to other parts of my life. I felt braver at work, in social situations, and even when trying new hobbies. English changed not only what I could do, but who I believed I could be. My dreams expanded. I no longer thought about only local opportunities. I began imagining studying abroad, working internationally, and traveling freely. I could read inspiring stories from people around the world. I could communicate with them. I could dream bigger because English made those dreams reachable. Even casual experiences became richer. I could watch a documentary, understand jokes, and participate in discussions online. I could enjoy content from YouTube creators, podcasts, and social media without barriers. The world felt full of colors, sounds, and voices I had never experienced before. English also taught me empathy. Talking to people from different cultures helped me understand their perspectives. I realized that the world is big, diverse, and full of stories. Language became a bridge between hearts, not just words on a page. Before, I had feared the unknown. I had worried about making mistakes, about not understanding. Now, English allowed me to embrace the unknown. Every conversation, every trip, every lesson was a new adventure. I was no longer limited by language. I was limited only by imagination. Looking back, I see a clear contrast. Before English, my world was small, predictable, safe, and limited. After learning English, my world is vast, exciting, and full of possibilities. I can connect with people, travel, learn, and grow. Language is freedom. It connects you to people, ideas, and dreams. And the best part? This freedom is not just about speaking or reading, it's about the mindset. Learning English taught me courage, patience, and perseverance. It showed me that I can reach goals I once thought impossible. Every word I learned, every conversation I practiced, built a new version of myself, confident, curious, and free. And that's why I want you to start your journey today. Chapter 11. Final message. We have reached the final chapter of my story, but in truth, this is just the beginning, for both of us. 5 months ago, I could barely speak a single sentence in English. I was nervous, shy, and unsure. I avoided speaking, feared making mistakes, and sometimes felt embarrassed just thinking about trying. Today, I look back and smile because I have transformed. English is no longer a mountain I am climbing. It is a path I walk every day, a companion in my life, and a door to opportunities I never imagined. Let me tell you again how this journey started. I remember sitting in my room, feeling small and frustrated. I watched movies and could not understand a word. I tried speaking to strangers and froze. I felt lost and alone. It was hard. I felt like giving up many times. I know some of you may feel the same way right now. You might think, I cannot do it. English is too difficult. I will never improve, I understand. I have been there. That fear, that doubt, is normal. But here's the truth. Fear is not a wall. Fear is a door. You can open it if you take just one step, and that first step is always the hardest. For me, the first step was deciding I wanted a reason to learn, a big reason that mattered. I wanted freedom, opportunities, and confidence. I wanted to connect with the world. Once I found my reason, everything started to change. My motivation gave me energy to take the next step. The second step was creating a plan. I did not try to do everything at once. I made a simple 5-month plan, listening in the morning, speaking practice in the afternoon, and reading or writing in the evening. At first, it was hard. Waking up early, staying consistent, and pushing through tiredness tested me. I struggled, but I remembered why I started. A plan gives direction. Without it, motivation alone is like a boat without a sail. Even with a plan, there were hard days. There were times I forgot words, mispronounced sentences, or felt my confidence drop. I wanted to quit, but I remembered a lesson I learned early. Every mistake is a teacher. Each failure was not the end. Each small failure built strength, patience, and resilience. Slowly, I learned that progress is not fast, but it is real. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to keep trying. Then came a turning point. Learning through stories. I started listening to short, emotional English stories every day. At first, I repeated simple sentences. I imagined the scenes, connected with the feelings, and slowly understood the meaning without translating. Stories made English alive. Grammar and vocabulary became natural. Learning was no longer boring. I realized that when you enjoy something, your brain remembers it easily. Stories opened a door to joyful learning. After listening, I began speaking. The first conversation with a foreigner was terrifying. My hands shook. My words were awkward. But I tried anyway. I laughed at mistakes, learned from them, and tried again. Speaking gave me freedom. I discovered I did not need perfect grammar. I just needed courage. Each conversation, no matter how small, made me stronger. Fear lost its power when I chose action over hesitation. Next, I built daily habits. I marked my calendar every day I practiced. Even 10 minutes a day was better than 3 hours once a week. The visual chain of completed days motivated me to continue. Habits created consistency, and consistency created progress. I realized that success is not about big actions once in a while. It is about small, repeated actions that become part of your life. Slowly, I became an English speaker in identity, not just in skill. Thinking in English was another major shift. I stopped translating in my mind. I started thinking, dreaming, and writing in English. Suddenly, comprehension became faster. Speaking became smoother. The language became part of my mind, my thoughts, and my creativity. This mental immersion accelerated learning in ways I had never imagined. It is a powerful step that changes not just your skill, but your way of seeing the world. And then, the world opened. English gave me opportunities I could not reach before. Friendships with people across the globe, travel without fear, better chances at work, access to knowledge and experiences that were once impossible. My small world expanded into a big world, full of possibilities. I realized that language is freedom. It is a bridge to people, culture, and dreams. Now, I want to share with you the lessons I learned in simple words. Lessons that can help anyone, no matter where you start. First, find your reason. A strong why gives you energy when things are hard. Think about why English matters to you, for travel, work, friendship, or dreams. Let that reason drive you every day. Second, make a simple plan. Small steps every day are stronger than long, rare study sessions. Decide your daily routine and stick to it. Morning, afternoon, evening. Even a few minutes adds up. Third, embrace mistakes. Fear of error slows you down. Every mistake teaches you something new. Laugh, learn, and keep moving. Courage is more important than perfection. Fourth, enjoy learning. Stories, songs, movies, or games make English feel alive. Learning is faster and easier when it is fun. Find a method that makes your heart smile. Fifth, build daily habits. 10 minutes a day is enough. Mark your progress. Celebrate small wins. Habits create identity. They transform who you are, not just what you know. Sixth, think in English. Stop translating. Imagine, dream, and write in English. Immersion creates real fluency and confidence. Your mind will begin to speak English naturally. And finally, take action. Don't wait for the perfect moment, for motivation, or for enough skill. Start today. Speak one sentence. Listen to one story. Believe in yourself. Each small step is a victory. Each step moves you closer to freedom. If I can do it, you can too. 5 months ago, I could barely say hello without shaking. Today, I speak, listen, write, and dream in English. My life changed, and yours can change too. It does not matter where you start. It matters that you start. I encourage you to take the first step now. Open a story. Listen for 5 minutes. Repeat a sentence aloud or write one thought in English. Celebrate that step. Tomorrow, take another. Slowly, day by day, the small actions will build something amazing. You will feel confident. You will speak freely. You will open doors you never imagined. Remember, learning English is not just about language. It is about freedom, courage, and opportunity. It is about connecting with people, exploring the world, and building confidence in yourself. Each word you learn, each sentence you speak, shapes your future. This is your journey. The fear you feel now is temporary. The confidence, freedom, and joy you will feel later are real and lasting. Keep moving forward. Celebrate every small victory. Keep your reason alive. Practice every day. Listen, speak, think, dream in English. And now, as you take your first step, remember this. This is not the end. This is just your beginning. Your English journey starts today, and it can take you further than you ever imagined. Start today. Speak one sentence. Listen to one story. Believe in yourself. The road may be long, but every step counts. Keep going, and soon you will look back and smile, just as I do now, proud of the person you have become.